I do have a scientific background, but my presentation will be a lot about policy because we want to put pressure into phasing out, as I said, pesticides, toxic pesticides in Europe. But I'm also going to talk about what we do afterwards. So once pesticides are found too toxic to be used in Europe, then European companies can still produce them and export them to countries where they have weaker environmental laws. So I really want to touch this subject as well. A lot has been said. We do have a very good pesticide regulation in Europe, so I'm not going to repeat this because it does give priority, as we heard, to the protection of the most vulnerable biodiversity, water resources, and ecosystems, and so on. And it is underpinned by the precautionary principle, and the way we understand it, this means it gives the power to policy makers, to, let's say, managers, to ban or phase out pesticides if they have suspicions that they are toxic. So they don't need to have the full, like, say, proof. But unfortunately, the law is not implemented in practice. There are loopholes and there's a lot of shortcomings in the way it's implemented. And we see this because we have continuous reports coming out that they're showing that they're linking pesticide exposure to serious diseases in farmers, but also to residents in agricultural areas, as well as to the environment and its resources. And here I just give some examples. We heard before about the Danish investigation, but here we have the French Institute, Health Institute, INSERM. We have the European Environment Agency as well, that they're showing like specific type of cancers, like non-Hodgkin lymphoma, prostate cancer, but also Parkinson's disease, neurological diseases are seen in farmers, but also in children. So we have like pediatric leukemia and cognitive disorders. So it's really a serious issue. And here on the right, there is a project that the results are coming out now. So it's a very recent project. And again, it confirms that we are exposed to a mixture of pesticides, and there's an important non-dietary exposure as well. So there's a lot of reasons that we have to take action. Now, one of the pesticides we investigated was the PFAS. So they have escaped this very strict regulatory system on pesticides. So we actually didn't know about PFAS in pesticides, and we found out when the Commission started working on the restriction proposal, and they said, oh, we're going to exclude pesticides from restriction proposal because they're very well regulated under the pesticide regulation. And we found out that this was not the truth. So we calculated that we have 32 PFAS active substances that they are approved currently. Now they're 31, as we heard before. And when we looked at the residues of these PFAS pesticides in food and vegetables, we found out that they had tripled in the last 10 years. So we're actually not only banning these pesticides, but we are increasing exposure to them. And we say, okay, are they really harmful? Well, they are. 10 of them were already flagged as more hazardous, so we knew that they were toxic. 21 are highly toxic to aquatic environment, 2 are endocrine disruptors, and many of them are persistent. But what's very common with all these, almost all of them, is that they break down to what we heard before, trifluoroacetic acid, TFA for short, and this is how I'm going to refer to it, which is highly persistent. It just never breaks down. I mean, it will stay there forever. And when we looked at, okay, why is this happening? I mean, surely these pesticides, I mean, when they were applying for the authorization, they should have reported it. And we saw that no, that was not the case. In many cases, they were not identified TFA as a residue of these pesticides, or it was not flagged as very persistent. So next step we did was together with our members, and this is an initiative of an Austrian member, Global 2000, we collected surface water from many places in Europe, And here we have the number of samples we collected, and we found TFA in all surface, all rivers, and also all groundwater samples that we collected. So it was everywhere. And it was far beyond the permitted limit, according to the pesticide regulation, of 0.1 microgram per liter. Then we said, what about tap water? So we asked our members to collect water from the tap, from their houses. And again, we found it in 94% of the samples. So there we also looked for other PFAS, and it's indeed that TFA is the most abundant PFAS that you can find. And then we also tested bottled waters that they're supposed to come from really pristine sources that they are protected. And again, we found it, as you see, 63% of the samples. So it's really concerning. A next project, it was to look into the wine. And why we picked up wine? Because we can go to aged wine. So we went back to aged, really expensive wine from 1970s. And unfortunately, we sacrificed it for TFA analysis, and we didn't find anything. So, and as you can see, I don't know if you can see the numbers because they're quite small, but apart from around 2000, we start, like in the late 90s, we started seeing increasing. This correlates very well with PFAS pesticides. And then at the end, you can see after 2020, you have a lot of, all the wine we tested had TFA, sometimes like more than 100 times higher than what we have in water. So, and yeah, this work received much more publicity than a water report, I have to say. But it is really concerning what we're finding. We also detected it in cereal products. It is found in certain fruit and vegetables. As we heard before, it's also in blood samples. We saw the research. And that's why the scientific community is now raising alarms. We have to do something about it because the TFA concentrations stay there. So the more we emit, they're rising irreversibly. So they call it a global threat. Now, what I don't have here is, I don't have the correlation, because when we test the water, surface water, there was a clear correlation with agriculture areas. So we found high levels of TFA closer to farming areas. And a study from the German Environment Agency also found that the main pollution of TFA in water resources is pesticide use. Okay, so TFA is toxic. Okay, it's less toxic than some other PFAS, but it is toxic. And we know that in 2007, we found that we knew since 2007 that it causes liver toxicity in rats because they've seen it in laboratory studies. And since 2021, we have more concerning results because we know now it causes developmental toxicity, so skeletal deformities and now malformations in rabbits, and also is toxic to reproduction and causes endocrine disruption like changes in thyroid in offspring. Yeah. It's, as we heard before, it's now going to be classified as toxic to reproduction. European Chemical Agency is doing this work. But what's interesting here is we looked into these studies that were submitted from 2021, and we saw that the industry had a very different opinion on the toxicity of TFA. So they were downplaying the toxicity findings, and they were claiming that the adverse effects are rabbit specific, which is not true. And also they propose a safety value of 4 to 100 times higher than what the European authorities do. So maybe we shouldn't trust them. As we heard before, according to the pesticide regulation, we have enough to ban all PFAS pesticides, and this is what we are requesting. This is according to the pesticide regulation. We don't believe we should go substance by substance. We have enough proof to ban all of these 31 PFAS pesticides that are currently in the market. And we really support Denmark for taking this step, and we want other member states to follow. And as we heard before, for us, the solution is simple because, first of all, you can just substitute one PFAS pesticide with another non-PFAS pesticide. But this is not what we are here today. Because we want to promote the use of non-chemical alternatives, this has to be the law since 2014. Member states have to use integrated pest management, which is an obligation by the Sustainable Use of Pesticides Directive. But this is not what's happening. We're saying that it's not applied in many member states. So we do really need to support the farmers to do this transition. So this means economic incentives, and yes, and yeah, like make integrated pest management mandatory. And this will also help to protect our water resources. And that brings me to my second point. So as I said before, yes, we are banning some pesticides that are very toxic. So because of the new pesticide regulation, but then what happens, the companies keep producing them to export them to countries with weaker protection laws, where the impacts on the local communities are devastating, and the environment and ecosystems and water resources, as you can imagine. So a study that was published this year, it shows that last year we exported 120,000 tons of banned pesticides to non-EU countries. This is a 50% increase in the last 6 years. So you can see the pattern. There were 75 pesticides, among them carcinogens, toxic to reproduction, water pollutants, and so on. And more than half, they go to low and medium income countries. This means that the countries where many times the farm workers, they leave where they work. So this exposing pregnant women, children, babies into these pesticides. This is the map. I can send you the link so you can see these images. They're very impactful. And yes, so if we see the top exporters, we see Germany is number 1, but then we have Belgium, Spain, Netherlands, and you have Denmark there as well. So it's the 8th exporter, according to the study, and it exports dimethoate. This is an organophosphate. It's a potential carcinogen, endocrine disruptor, and toxic to bees and birds. And then what happens is also, as a boomerang effect, many of these pesticides come back to Europe through pesticides in food, in imported food. And in a study we did in 2022, we found actually 52 banned pesticides in European food, which is sold in EU market. A lot of that in our coffee and tea, but also spices and legumes. And when we looked like, why is this happening? We realized that we actually, it is allowed. I mean, we actually allow residues of 65 pesticides that are banned in Europe to be imported in food. Yeah. So we don't have to start from scratch. Because of all the political pressure, back in 2020, the European Commission did promise to do something about this and to present measures to stop the production and export of hazardous banned pesticides and other chemicals, actually. In the meantime, we have the UN rapporteurs for human rights and right to food sending out statements saying that this is an immoral practice. This is a modern world exploitation and has to stop. And we really welcome Denmark's letter together with 7 member states asking the Commission to deliver to this promise, which we're still waiting. So France and Belgium have taken the lead, and the Commission, the new Commission, did say in vague words that they're going to do something about it, but we're still waiting to see the concrete results. But they also did say that they're going to stop food, like residues in food imports. So yes, it was very interesting. This week, there was a Danish poll that was showing that 88% of Danish they find this practice unethical and they want it to stop. So Denmark has the full support to even do a national ban, like to stop nationally the export of pesticides that have been banned in Denmark. And here we have also done a study that shows that it will have actually no economic impact, a serious economic impact to stop such exports. On the other hand, it will help to boost the more sustainable agricultural methods, like non-chemical methods. And with this, I just have these are my takeaway messages. We heard about simplifying, and for us, simplifying should not result in deregulation. We need to strengthen the implementation of the pesticide regulation to protect health. We call upon the European Commission as well, the EU member states, to ban PFAS pesticides. We push for we call upon regulators to push for a sustainable agriculture model that protects health, water, soil, and truly promotes food security, because this is about food security. And finally, we call upon the Commission to deliver on its promise to end the export of banned pesticides, and also countries to take initiative at national level. And with this, I would like to close my presentation. Thank you.